We don't properly understand or appreciate how difficult it is to play tight end in the NFL. So today we're going to learn better. We're going to talk to former NFL tight end Clay Harbor about playing tight end in the NFL, but also what that looks like for Cole Kmet, Robert Tonyan, and how they fit in the Bears offense this season.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Bears. You can like Locked On Bears on Facebook. Join the Locked On Bears Facebook group for even more Bears talk. And make sure you hit that subscribe button on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel to keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we especially appreciate our everydayers tuning in 5 days a week for your daily Bears fix. We've got a real special treat for you today. We'll be joined by Clay Harbor, former tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles, Jacksonville Jaguars, among other teams. And he not only knows the tight end position through and through, but he's a Chicago guy. Covers the Chicago Bears. He's a great follow on Twitter at ClayHarbs82, and a guy that's just a good person. I met him a few times at different events, and really excited to have him on the podcast today to preview this Bears tight end position. It's our tight end training camp preview of sorts, but we're going to talk more broadly about the position, about Cole Kmet, his value to the Bears versus his value as a expiring contract and negotiating a potential new contract for him in the grand scheme of the position in the NFL, and why we're both particularly excited about Robert Tonyan in this Bears offense. And I think not enough people are talking about the value he's going to add as well. And I can't talk enough about the value Clay Harbor added to our conversation here. So let's jump right in. All right, joining us now on the Locked On Bears podcast is Clay Harbor. He's a former NFL tight end, bounced around with a few different teams, had some nice stints in Jacksonville and Philadelphia, but a good 7 seasons in the league. Clay, thank you so much for taking some time with us today. I guess, first of all, I wanted to get your perspective on the tight end position here and what kind of responsibilities that position just in general holds. Because I think of it as like something that people on the outside don't fully understand, like how much is on a tight end's plate when you're have to be kind of like a wide receiver and an offensive lineman at the same time. Like what kind of conversations happen in those tight end rooms? Like how much information in an offense is on your plate at that spot?
Oh man, it's a lot. But firstly, Lauren, you cut me down of a year, 8 years, 8 active seasons. You said 7, it's fine. But as far as pension goes, I want to make sure that the NFL doesn't hear this and say, hey, this guy only has 7, but it's 8. But no, tight end position has really been a position that has changed and developed over the years. Back in the day, you think about it, they were just an extension of the offensive tackle. That's what they were. They were guys that were just put out there in the run game that could catch a 5-yard route and basically just be an extension of the offensive tackle. Then you go back, if I'm a historian of the position, you look at guys like Shannon Sharp was a game changer. You look back at Kellen Winslow Sr., not Junior, Senior, not Junior. I'm a soldier. No, Kellen Winslow Sr., like those guys were the guys that really changed the game. Ozzie Newsome, if you go back all the way to Mike Dick, I didn't change the game because, there's a lot of game after him that were just blocking tight ends. But that's what led up to the tight end position to what it is now. It is a very tough position to play today because the different types of things you're supposed to do. Tight end can play fullback. Tight end can play in the slot now. Now you got a tight end playing outside. Now you got a tight end that's doing the move stuff, the H-back stuff. You got to know all the positions. You got to be able to pass block, run block. So obviously I'm a little biased, but I think it's one of the hardest positions on the field, obviously outside of quarterback and cornerback. But the tight end position has evolved so much that it's very difficult position to play just because you have to be very intelligent and then you have to be able to do a lot of different things such as blocking, catching the football, running routes, all that good stuff.
It's also seemed like it's a difficult position to come into the league and excel at quickly. It seems like that's one of the spots that we see players kind of take the longest to really break out and establish themselves. Even like the premier top players usually take at least a good year. I mean, Kyle Pitts was kind of an exception his first season in Atlanta. But he's also a very exceptional player in a lot of different ways and more of a wide receiver. But like for the most part, it takes guys a year or 2 or 3 to really reach more of that full potential, as opposed to like a lot of the rest of the league. Now we have these like immediate expectations of like quarterback has to come in and be good as a rookie. Why does it take longer for tight ends, even the ones that end up being really, really good, to really kind of settle into that? Like, what does it take, or why does it take more time for that position in particular?
I feel like it's the same with offensive linemen, and that's because as a receiver, it's like coming into basketball right away. It's not a developmental thing. It's, physically, some of these guys can just use their athleticism outside at the receiver's position. As an offensive lineman, as a tight end, first off, you have to be able to learn an offense. You're coming in, you're getting drafted, you're getting thrown right into OTAs, you're going to training camp, you got to learn the offense. You got to figure out, hey, this is an NFL offense. This is hard to learn. Now you have to know a lot of different positions. Offensive coordinator probably wants to move you around a lot. You're not going to be an in-line wide tight end most of the time. It's hard to learn that stuff on the line, the blockings, the run blockings, the pass blocking, the protection, all the different idiosyncrasy that goes along with the position. And then it's just a physical thing, like offensive lineman. You're physically going against these athletes on a day-to-day basis. Maybe you see 1 or 2 during a season in college that are great athletes, NFL caliber guys, tight ends. Physically, now you're blocking these guys that are defensive ends in the NFL. These were the college all-stars, the best of the best. Now you're blocking them every single week. So it just takes time to figure out your technique. For me, it's like, I could go into a college game. Obviously, I was an FCS guy, but didn't have to worry about technique. I was just bigger, stronger, and faster. I come to the NFL. Now I'm with Philadelphia Eagles, 4th-round draft pick, playing against DeMarcus Ware. You have to have proper technique. Brian Orakpo, you have to have proper technique. So it takes a while to not only learn the offense, which is more difficult. An Andy Reid offense, it's been around for 15, 20 years, got all these different plays. Learn that, then you have to worry about your technique. So there's a lot of different things involved in the game for a tight end, because it's a run game and the pass game. You can't just put them out there like a cornerback, a safety, a wide receiver, give them the ball like a running back. You have to learn and you have to develop physically.
How jarring was that for you, going from Missouri State to the NFL? I mean, I imagine you knew it would be a pretty big jump in competition, but like, did it exceed your expectations? Like, or were you prepared for the likes of DeMarcus Ware and Brian Orakpo?
That's why I was so impressed with what Braxton Jones was able to do last year as an FCS guy. I went to Missouri State, right? I played against the FCS competition, and just seeing what he was able to do going against that competition week in and week out to now playing as a starting left tackle in the NFL is truly amazing. The biggest difference for me personally was just the speed of the game. I know you've heard it once, you hear it again, but it's everything happens a lot faster. The huddle happens faster. You're getting these terms thrown at you. It takes a little bit longer to learn. But end of my career, I felt like I could pick up an offense like that. The first couple of years, it was like I was swimming. I was thinking too much. It's hard to go from that level where you can line up there and you can win based off of your physical tools to now in the NFL. You got to know the plays. You got to know the checks. Your technique's got to be right. And for Braxton Jones to go from Southern Utah to a full-time starter at an NFL level coming from FCS is just, I don't think people realize how special that is. One thing that troubled me a little bit was just something simple as a snap count, right? In FCS, I mean, there's 10,000 people at the game. You can wave. You can see your mom, your grandma, your dad. Who's at the game. It's not loud. You are using a snap count every play. Green 8, set hut. Whatever. 1, on 2, on 3. You go to the NFL level. If you're in an away game, you are using a silent count. The team's going to you're not going to be able to hear, especially out there at tackle, at tight end. So now you have to be able to look at the center, and you're going off the center's head movement. And those split seconds, it's so different. As a tight end in college is always the first one off the ball. Now half your games you have to look for a silent count. Now I'm looking inside. I'm trying to see the center move. So you're laid off the snap. And if you're laid off the snap in the NFL, the play is already over. So just stuff like that, the small things that some people don't realize that makes it more difficult to play at this level, is something you got to learn. And for me, it took a couple of years to really pick up all those idiosyncrasies and be able to translate that onto the football field. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is the speed the snap count, obviously the coverage, the verbiage. There's just so much more things involved in the playbook at this level.
This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. And they've teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for your draft right now or certainly during the season, scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So with draft prep underway for this upcoming season, let's see who Vinny's picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. If you're looking to make a smooth turn in your fantasy football snake drafts, maybe you have the last pick of the first round and the first pick in the second round, you'll be guaranteed to have a winning 1-2 punch of workhorse power in your backfield when we're taking the Colts' Jonathan Taylor and the Browns' Nick Chubb back-to-back. While Taylor is a perfect rebound candidate in a more run-friendly offense in Indianapolis, Chubb is also set up to dominate with more of the combined workload in Cleveland. Our guy Vinny over at Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. And the same thing goes for your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. We're talking air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it. eBay Motors has it, and they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car because eBay's Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up, because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, everything in your vehicle is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your car, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Another part of the transition that I was curious about was not as much the transition from college to the NFL, but when you transition from team to team. And I can't help but feel like that there's a valuable experience here when you went from the Eagles to the Jaguars, like at the end of the preseason, to start with a new team week one, having not been with them through training camp or through any of the offseason, and have to learn everything on the fly. But also when you change like in season from the Patriots to the Lions, and it makes me think of a Chase Claypool, for example, getting thrown in. Like, all right, you're on a new team, you haven't been here at all in this offseason. Here's the offense. We're playing on Sunday. Good luck. Get out. How difficult is that? Especially, I think, early in your career. I think you guys were about the same age, I think around that 25, 26-year-old when you end up going through that transition. Like, was that long enough for you to start to learn some of those intricacies to be able to pick it up quicker? Or when does that become an easier transition?
Luckily for me, it was later when I went from New England to Detroit. I was a veteran. It was later in my career. I was able to pick up offenses on the fly. But early in your career, when maybe you haven't got your routine down specifically, you're not sure exactly the best way for you to retain things. Maybe you're not as focused as you should be early in your career. It's a little more difficult. So I played 3 years, get drafted to Philly, played 3 seasons, 2010, 2011, 2012 as the number 2 tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles. 2013, 14 comes around. Chip Kelly comes in, moves me to linebacker, doesn't work out, moves me to receiver, doesn't work out. Then I get released in the final preseason game. So now you got a week to pick up the offense. Once you get picked up, I get picked up by the Jaguars on waiver wires. They're the number 1 team in the waiver wires. It goes from the worst team has the first pick in waivers, best team has the last pick. I get picked up by the Jaguars. During that week, Mercedes Lewis tears his calf. He's out. I just got signed. They were going to bring me up. So now they go, Clay, you're starting. I go, all right, this is great. And I'm playing against my coach from the last season, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs. So you have to cram like you're in college. You're procrastinating for a test, and you just study, figure out, your best way to learn. And typically you get a small package, right? You're going to, okay, these are the 10 plays we're going to use you on. But if you get thrown into a team and you're a starter, you got to kind of pick up the offense as a whole. So it's a different deal. If you're coming in and you're just trying to get a small package, all right, here's your 10 plays, just know what you're doing here. A little bit easier. If you're coming in nowadays, they want you to be ready to play the whole offense. It takes a little bit more time. It can be done, but it just takes a lot more effort. It's very difficult for young players to do that. And I remember for me going back, the first play of the game, the first play of that season, for Andy Reid's first game with the Chiefs, my first game with the Jaguars, I caught a 12 to 15 yard out route. And I remember thinking like, wow, a week ago I was on the Eagles. Now I'm catching a pass against my old coach. Life comes at you fast. The NFL comes at you fast. So that's a difficult thing to do for a lot of players. Chase Claypool, I thought he could have done a better job of picking up the offense. After a couple weeks, 3 weeks, you should have a general idea. He's been in the league for a couple of years. You should have a general idea to be able to go out there and play fast. I think the offseason helps some guys. Some guys pick it up faster. Some guys don't. So I'm really excited for him for this year, because if you're playing slow, if you're thinking, that really affects you as a player. And this year, he's going to be playing fast. He's going to know the offense. He's going to have more confidence in the offense. So I think he will have a big bounce back year. And then to answer your question, mid-season, you go from one team, I get cut from the Patriots after week 5. The next day, I signed with the Detroit Lions, and I'm playing on Sunday. So it's difficult. I was a guy that could learn fast. I mean, I could pull up quotes from Jim Caldwell. Clay Harbor's the brightest player I've ever coached in terms of learning an offense. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, Lauren, but it was something I could do. And it's hard for a lot of guys. And for the guys that can't do it that quickly, it affects them a lot. So I'm excited for Chase Claypool. I think he's going to have a big year. It was tough for the Bears when they picked up all those guys off of waivers last year. Hopefully this year we only get 1 or 2. I know we're going to have the first position in waiver wires, but you don't want that many new faces coming in right before the season. So I think this year will be a different story. I think Chase Claypool will be better. And, I think it'll be, even though we have the number 1 position in waiver wires, I think we only pick up 2 to 3 guys this year.
How much do you think injuries set Chase Claypool back, in particular during that transition when, you're coming to a new team and you want to be on the field for as many reps as possible, but then misses some time? Like, I guess, like, how much of the time that he needed, like, is he still getting enough time when he's injured, like, just because he's still in the playbook and has more time to still be studying and learning off the field, or in that critical, initial time with that team, do you really feel like you need to have the practice reps even more so than just the actual time to go through the playbook?
Different players, it matters for different players differently. I was a guy that I needed to go through it. I needed to be on the field. I needed to be doing it after I learned it to really have it set in. Some guys, some of the veteran players, they can just go through the reps mentally. They can be in the meetings, they can learn the stuff, and they can do it that way. As a young guy, Chase Claypool, I think he did miss some valuable time. Back in the day, there was you had about 20 OTAs. Now it's down to 10. There was just OTA after OTA back in the day. You didn't even count them. You just knew you were going to be OTAs from this date to OTAs. You're finishing OTAs with the mandatory mini camp. Didn't even count them. Now there's only 10. You need to be healthy and on the field for all those 10. It's only 10, especially if you're coming to a new team. But if he's a guy that can learn mentally and take those snaps into training camp's obviously the most important. So he's still got good time here. You see the guys, Justin Fields and Mooney, the guys training in the offseason together. So they got some good throwing sessions there. But training camp's going to be really important for Claypool because he missed that. He's going to have to show that, hey, he knows the offense first and foremost. And now you got a bunch of new guys. Claypool's going to move in and out. Obviously, you got Mooney that plays slot, plays outside. DJ Moore, he's more of an outside guy, but can play slot. So I think you're going to have to see a lot of interchanging there between Z, X, F. However you classify your receivers. Obviously, Z and X is universal, but then F, there's the U, there's the H. Who knows how different teams, different offenses classify them in different ways. But regardless, you're going to see a lot of interchangeable guys, and that's what I'm so excited about this year with this offense. Robert Tonyan, he can play F, he can play X, Z. Cole Kmet will be inside, outside. You're going to see Claypool inside, outside. You're going to see DJ Moore inside, outside. So now once you break the huddle, the defense doesn't know. If you're in a man-to-man situation, you're going to have to show it right away. When you have a tight end lined up out wide, if the linebacker's out with them, it's man-to-man. If it's a safety out with them, it's man-to-man. If it's a cornerback out with them, it's probably zone. That's why Tom Brady, in every play, you watch Tom Brady, every play he has emotion. Every single play. He wants a motion with a running back or tight end. That's going to show if it's man or zone. That's half the battle right there. Then you have to decipher, okay, this guy's in cover 3. Is it a man-to-man look? Cover 1? Is it 2 buzz? Is it 2 man? There's a lot of different zones, but if you can use these players, interchangeable, use motion, line them up in different positions, these teams aren't going to be able to, they're going to show you right away man or zone. And that's going to help Justin Fields because you have different reads, obviously, on man-to-man plays and zone plays. So all in all, I think it's going to be great if these guys know, so you guys got the whole extra year in the system. Now you can start using motions, and instead of doing basic math, now you can start doing algebra, you can start doing trigonometry, and you can start really progressing this offense.
Yeah, I want to get into a few of those players in particular. Let's start with Cole Kmet. I'm curious where you view him sort of on the grand spectrum of tight ends in the NFL. He's been someone who I think is a little bit enigmatic in that way, where it's like, he hasn't necessarily been in super productive offenses. So like not all the box score numbers are going to be a great reflection of what Cole Kmet is and isn't able to do. But he's also, I don't think anyone's pretending that he's, Travis Kelce either. So how do you sort of put him on the spectrum of NFL tight ends?
I'm a big Cole Kmet fan, but I'm realistic with what he can do and what he can't do. But I think he's great after the catch. I mean, you look at him last year statistically, he averaged 5.9 yards after the catch, which was 6th in the NFL per catch. He had a 99 pass rating, which was top 10, which was 9th, I believe. And he had the most run blocking snaps of any tight end in the NFL with 457. And he had the 6th best run blocking grade among all tight ends. And he's also a solid receiver and a blocker. First and foremost, the way this offense is set up, you need a tight end that can block front side. If you have a guy like, say, Evan Ingram, Travis Kelce as your tight end with this offense, it's not going to work. You're going to have to sift them backside on blocks. You're going to have to use him as a cutoff blocker. You're going to have to arc release him to the safety and figure out ways to get linemen on defensive ends. Cole Kmet's a guy that can block defensive ends, and that's impressive. He's not crushing them. He's not moving them. He is holding his own, but that is tough to do as a tight end in this league. So for this offense, he's extremely valuable just off the fact that he can block these guys. He can stay front side. They can run the zone front side with Kmet. They don't have to put him in the backside cutoff. They don't have to sift him across the line. They don't have to arc release him. He's a guy that's tough enough. He's big enough to do that. Okay, and then secondly, in the passing game, he's a big target that can run. He's not, like you said, he's not Travis Kelce. He's not going to win a ton of man-to-man routes by, running some crazy route and getting wide open, but he's a big body. You can just put him on him, and he can catch a ball. I think that's where Tonyan comes in. Tonyan's a guy that's a little bit different, right? He's a former quarterback in college that turned to wide receiver, that in the NFL turned to tight end. So he's got a different skill set than Kmet, and I think they're going to work well together. But just specifically with Kmet, if I had to put a number on it, Lauren, I would say he's probably top 12, top 10 tight end. I mean, all around, the guy can do so many things. I mean, I love the way that he blocks. Not a lot of tight ends even get asked to block the front side of plays. He does. He can do it well. He did a good job, 7 touchdowns last year, red zone threat. He's not going to be the big game-breaking guy, but this guy is big. I walked on the field last year in training camp, and I'm just walking around, I turn around, that's Cole Kmet. This dude looks like the guy off of Happy Gilmore. I believe that's Mr. Gilmore's jacket. This guy is big. He's 6'6", 270. This guy's a monster, dude. Like he's like the size of Gronk. Like people don't realize how big Kmet actually is. He's a big dude, and that helps when you have a young quarterback that at man-to-man, you can put the ball on a guy when you're blocking. I mean, it's hard to block as a small guy. So I love Kmet, and I also like Tonyan.
Yeah, it's interesting because I agree 100%. Like the value to him in this offense is so strong, and yet like I look at the highest paid tight ends, of course, like Evan Ingram just gets the new deal this past week, but like it's Darren Waller, George Kittle, certainly a good blocker, but a lot of these guys tend to be the longer, leaner receiving types. Waller, Kelce, Goddard, Ingram. At the top of the actual market, and the blockers don't get paid. Not that Cole Kmet is just a blocker, but players aren't getting paid for their blocking. And I wonder if there's potential for, I don't want to say like a disconnect there, but if Cole Kmet's saying like, listen, I'm really valuable for this offense. I'm a really good blocker. I'm an effective receiver. And the Bears go like, yes, but the all-rounded tight ends don't get paid as much unless you're George Kittle, who's really kind of the unicorn there. So I don't know. Do you foresee a value discrepancy there? And just like he's valuable to the Bears, but is he less valuable like in the tight end market than comparatively?
Yeah, I think he is more valuable to the Bears because a lot of these offenses don't use tight ends like that. I mean, but there's only so many guys that can do both things at a decent rate. Like you said, George Kittle. I mean, this guy's a freak because Kittle. I mean, look at his combine numbers. This guy ran a 4.5 flat. He jumped an 11-foot broad jump, like 40-inch vertical. I mean, and he's blocking people like that. He's that fast. He's that good in the run game. Like this guy. I mean, George Kittle's a freak.
So those George Kittle numbers remind me of your combine numbers, though.
Yeah, back in the day, yeah, I did have a nice combine, Lauren.
Yeah.
40-inch vertical, 10 plus broad jump, 30 reps on the bench press.
Bench reps. Those are the ones I remember.
4.6, but 4.5 at my pro day. Taking a stroll down memory lane. But I definitely think there's a disconnect there because Kmet probably sees his value as something more, but the blockers don't get paid. They don't get paid as much as the receiving guys. It's a numbers game. And then you bring in Robert Tonyan this year. They brought in Tonyan for a reason. When Luke Getsy was the passing game coordinator at Green Bay, that's when Tonyan had that 11 touchdown year. Luke Getsy probably wanted Tonyan pretty bad. You look at Tonyan, he had 52 receptions on 59 targets that year in 2020 before he got hurt. And he had the number one passer rating win target in the NFL, higher than Travis Kelce, higher than Dallas Goedert, higher than Mark Andrews, higher than TJ Hawkinson. He had the number one passer rating when targeted at 149. It was dang near a perfect passer rating when targeted. Obviously, he had Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But Tonyan is going to get some looks. People got to realize that in some of these plays, you're going to have two tight end sets. They're both going to be split out. But a lot of time, Kmet's going to be attached and Tonyan's going to be split out. If one of them is running a route, it's going to be Tonyan. So Kmet might have just as good as a year, might have a great year, but he's going to be splitting some of these numbers. You look at the way they use the offense when Luke Getsy was the pass game coordinator in Green Bay with Mercedes Lewis and Tonyan when they were both playing well. Mercedes Lewis had some numbers in the receiving game. He was the blocker. Tonyan was the receiver. I think there's going to be some of that this year, and some people might see at the end of the year, Kmet has 500 yards again, 5-7 touchdowns. Maybe it's down year. No, it's a solid year, but Tonyan also has 500 yards and a couple 3-4 touchdowns. So Kmet still had a good year. He probably blocked well, but maybe his numbers got split up a little bit because he was asked to do different things because of the players the Bears have now on that roster.
Yeah, I think Tonyan is a player that we're not talking about enough collectively in the Chicago media and certainly among the fan base of like how much I think Luke Getsy should be excited for this. Because I remember like at the start of last season, they tried to run a lot of two tight end sets with Cole Kmet and like Ryan Griffin. No disrespect to Ryan Griffin, but Robert Tonyan is a little bit of a step up there. Plus the familiarity with Luke Getsy, like that offers such a more of a threat that you're going to have to then get, if you got both those tight ends in, you're going to get minimum 7 guys in the box, if not 8 or 9. So then it's going to be fewer guys deep to kind of cover the 2 receivers in the field. Plus, those guys are going to struggle to keep up with Tonyan and Kmet. Yeah. It's going to be slower players in the box for Fields to outrun. Like it seems like that. I mean, as much as DJ Moore deserves all the attention for sure, like that's the bigger move. It feels like Tonyan has the potential to unlock another layer of this offense that I don't think people are talking enough about.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I might be a little bit biased, Lauren, but I think that 2 tight end sets are very helpful, especially for a young quarterback, because you're going to get base defense. In your base defense, you're not going to see a lot of the crazy looks that you could see in nickel and a lot of different things. You put their base out there, a little bit slower group. So if Tonyan can require a base defense. Some tight ends like Tonyan, they'll still play their nickel to him because they're like, hey, this guy's just a big receiver. We're going to split him out. I think Tonyan blocks well enough to where he will see a good amount of base defense. So if you get that base defense, it'll water things down a little bit, make things easier to see. And then he's a matchup problem. You put a tight end on a linebacker, tight end like Tonyan on a linebacker. He's going to be able to use his speed to get open. And then you put a safety on him, maybe smaller safety. He can use his size. Tonyan's, if he's healthy, if he's back to being 100%, this guy's a weapon in the pass game. He can run routes. He's got great hands. I mean, you look at his drop rate the past few years, the guy doesn't drop passes. He's one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite targets. And I think that Tonyan is a guy that can run. He can catch. I mean, he was a Missouri Valley product. I mean, we know I love Missouri Valley guys. I went to Missouri State. He went to Indiana State. Former wide receiver. I love former wide receivers at tight ends because these guys know how to run routes, okay? Nothing against the big, bulky tight ends like Kmet, but Kmet does not run as crisp routes as Tonyan does. Kmet's a lot bigger. He's a big, Gronk style route runner, he's kind of a big dude that can still move, but it's not running the crazy. Tonyan runs routes. Tonyan can get open against man-to-man, and he does a good job with that. So I think that just opens up so many things. You can put him in the backfield. You can split him out. Kmet can actually play slot too. He can play in the backfield. He's a little bit too big for a lot of fullback work, but I think it's going to open up a lot of things offensively. Like you said, DJ Moore, the sexy signing, but I think Tonyan is a guy that's going to pay some dividends down the road. And I liked Ryan Griffin and James O'Shaughnessy. O'Shaughnessy didn't make the team for whatever reason. I think he was hurt or something, but I was pretty disappointed with how Ryan Griffin played last year. I had played with him in the past. I thought he was going to be able to be a guy that the Bears could lean on, and obviously it didn't happen. So big upgrade this year in the tight end room with Tonyan.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised pleasantly that Robert Tonyan didn't end up following Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets, but he was able to come to the Bears. And pleasantly surprised too that Clay Harbor has not been primarily an Eagles or a Jaguars analyst on Twitter, but you're breaking down the Chicago Bears. We're so happy to have you around this team and around this organization and giving fans the insights from your playing career. Really appreciate you making some time for us. Let everybody know where they can follow you on Twitter and what kind of stuff they can expect from you.
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter, ClayHarbs82. You'll see a lot of post game analysts with the Bears. I just did a hit on NBC Sports yesterday. I'm working with CBS Sports today. We're doing a segment there, 670 The Score. I host there often, so I'll be all over the place. I work for 33rd Team, Mike Tannenbaum's media company, do hits there, but you'll find all that on my Twitter, ClayHarbs82. Let's go Bears.
Excellent, Clay. Thanks so much for joining us. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren.
Thanks again to Clay Harbor for joining us on the podcast today. How great was he? That was so much fun talking with him. I learned a lot about the tight end position, about Cole Kmet and this Bears offense. I hope you did too. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Really appreciate you making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That's your team every day. On Monday, we'll wrap up our Bears training camp previews here. We'll finally get back to the quarterback position where most people end up starting. We went in kind of reverse order intentionally there just to mix things up. We'll look at Justin Fields, PJ Walker, the chance for a number 3 quarterback battle with Tyson Bagent and Nathan Peterman as well. A lot to get to there. And then before you know it, Bears players will be back at training camp. It's a really exciting time. I'm looking forward for real football action coming back our way. I hope you're excited for it too. And I hope listening to the Locked On Bears gives you each and every day that next opportunity to bear down.